So I think there is also need of how we ensure that all these bills do not only involve debate and discussion between the cabinet secretary and his committee, but also involves the larger leadership, so that the larger leadership also understands it, you know, from beginning to end, so that by the time it's coming to the floor of the House, people are clear. People know why was this done, why was that done, why was this not done, why this was not done. So it minimizes debate and it brings everybody on board.
There's really need for constant engagement.
Myself and my colleague, Justin Muturi, Your Excellency, have designed a way of working together and sorting out issues that have been outstanding so that we are able to propel your agenda fast.
All right, Speaker Kenneth Lusaka, Speaker Justin Muturi and President Kenyatta speaking on Saturday during the State House meeting. And I want to begin with you, Honorable Kamket, because you're a chair of a parliamentary committee. I don't know whether you were there, but whatever it is, so now we hear the President saying that there's a desire that members of Parliament, the leadership of committees work together when it comes to bills. I thought that Parliament is independent and they have their own way of doing things. What was the major take-home from that meeting that was anticipated to be looking at how best to take through the BBI process to Parliament?
First of all, it was a very important meeting at State House. One of the problems we've created for ourselves as a country was to adopt activist constitution, and it's some of the problems we are dealing with now as a nation, because when we have absence of the executive from Parliament. So you find parliamentarians speaking to themselves, and sometimes we found ourselves speaking or even working at cross purposes with the executive, because when there is no that physical interaction, especially in the House, you find that it becomes difficult. So this is not one of the problems we have inherited, but the biggest take home for me from the State House meeting was the call by the President to work, to find a way of working in harmony between Parliament and the Executive, and look for innovative ways of working together. And then, of course, the President hinted to us about BBI loading, and we expect, I believe they are putting the final touches. We expect in the next few days, therefore, that the BBI report will be launched, and that the BBI will be the panacea to the problems we are facing now as a people, because we have to find, we created a constitutional problem for ourselves. We must find a constitutional solution for ourselves.
Okay, even though that is not, not everyone agrees with that sentiment, but for you, Senator Cheryl Gaye, so of course you saw that meeting, and as Honorable Kamket tells us here, it was also to prepare the chairs and vice chairs of committees as well as the House leadership on how best to deal with the BBI. Yet there are some of you like yourself who don't believe, I don't know whether that has changed. How do you think we should be handling this as soon as the report is released?
The meeting of chairs and committee, vice chairs and committee and House leadership, for me it came as a shocker. I serve as the chair of Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights in Senate for the last 3 years. The party leader, who is the president, never called us for a consultative meeting. I think that this is honeymoon for the people like Kamket, because that is the farthest they can go. Never access again and consulting the party leader. And I hope the honeymoon will be over, because when I was the lead, there is no day we consulted with the executive on any, because I agree with Kamket when he says that before we do any legislative proposal, the policy should precede. And most of the legislative proposal, of course, comes from the executive. And I remember when I used to chair the legal, we used just to receive the policy or legislative proposal from the executive and nothing further consultation. So I think going forward, we know the real reason that the leadership was being called to State House. One, of course, is to try and use the route of Parliament to achieve the BBI proposals. They have realized referendum is not as popular as they imagined. So they are trying in one way or another, and that is why the first time they did whip most of us from parliamentary leadership, so that they thought that we don't need to have critical voices that can oppose any BBI proposals. But I want to advise them that even the comma or full stop they came from, or even the question mark they came from State House, will never see daylight in Parliament, because we believe Parliament should be independent. Parliament should be independent from the executive, because we are the ones who check and balances against excesses of the executive. So whichever my brother Kamket and his colleagues and cronies came from State House, I hope it was only chai and mandazi, but beyond that, they will never be able to have any meaningful discussion at the floor of the House.
Okay, all right. Of course, you're saying that they may never get any fruitful outcome at the floor of the House. Let's listen to what the President said, as well as the Deputy President. Of course, they spoke at different functions, but I think it was the same day. Let's listen.
Let us be able to build a level of trust, yeah, and confidence that a Kenyan citizen can know, yes, I may have a favored candidate, but regardless of whether my favored candidate wins, I will be very happy. But even if he loses, yeah, my life will continue, and that person who has won will never be able to take me back, will never be able to interfere with my life.
Munasema tuanzie juu mahali viongozi wako, ama tuanzie hapa chini mwananchi yuko? Wacheni matusi, wacheni madharau, wacheni kiburi. Safari hii hawa mahasla hawa ndio tutaunda serikali ya 2022 pamoja.
All right, so that's the Deputy President. Of course, he was not attending the State House meeting. I don't know why. Honorable Gashagu, you might know. Why didn't he attend the meeting at State House? And how do you suggest we move on, bearing in mind that there's that anticipation that the BBI report will be released?
Thank you very much. One, before I comment on that one, I would like to tell Honorable Kamket, this idea that the boss is always right, that is in a dictatorship. The kind of democracy we have, people must be able to oversight others. I know he's in Kanu, and those things were possible in Kanu. And that is why people walked out of Kanu, where you say the boss is always right. We'll support the president in what is good, what is reasonable. And where there is an issue like that, Huduma, we asked because it was shrouded in secrecy. And we happen now he has come out. Had we not asked, he would not have found it necessary to do it. So he is reacting to our oversight role.
Okay.
Deputy President is not in parliamentary leadership. The meeting was parliamentary leadership, so he had no, and I don't think if he was invited he would go, but he would have no role. Those are parliamentary issues that were being discussed. But I want to say that was a good...
The president is the head of the executive.
He would
the
call
deputy
him. The deputy is there. He serves, he's a principal assistant to the president, and he goes to meetings when he is invited. And he would never fail to go if he is invited. If he's not invited, he goes about his business.
Are you certain he wasn't invited?
Well, I know if he's invited, he'll go. He is very respectful to his boss, yeah? And if he's invited, he'll be there. That I'm sure, 100%. I want to say that is a good meeting. But the president, I request him to take it a little bit further. This BBI thing, he has never told us about it. He never called a meeting to discuss the handshake. And that is why there has been a lot of resistance. He can change tact for now. Let him convene a PG for Jubilee. And Jubilee, we are the majority, both in the Senate and in the National Assembly. And take us through the BBI and let us have a very open conversation with him and agree on the issues that are helpful to this country. As it is, the handshake and the BBI has not solidified the country. It has divided the country right into the middle. We were told the handshake is for uniting Kenya, but Kenya is more disunited than it was before the handshake. Battle lines are drawn right in the middle. I would very respectfully urge my friend, the president, whom I worked with for a very long time, to call a PG for Jubilee and discuss with us, all the ideas he has about BBI, because he is quite passionate that it can sort out the problems of this country. Of course, we'll have an opportunity, if you allow us also, to tell him that we don't think we need a constitution to deal with election violence. Election violence in this country.
So what purpose would that Jubilee Parliamentary Group meeting
it's a discussion,
serve?
It's a discussion so that when it comes to Parliament, we have a consensus.
Okay.
We need to build a consensus, Sam. Let me tell you. This thing of giving it to the parliamentary leadership to bring to us, it will not work. We must have now politics of persuasion. You know where we have reached. Members must be persuaded with reasons. And we are grown-ups, we are people who have gone to school, we are leaders in our own right, and we can't support something blindly. And I think for our party Jubilee and for our president, for this thing not to be acrimonious, if he called a Jubilee PG and take us through the proposals and his own interpretation, I am sure somewhere along the line we would strike some consensus and be able to push this through Parliament. Because I was in Meru, I was in Embu. This BBI, if it's going to referendum, we do not see the light of the day. It will have to come to Parliament.
Okay.
The public is not in the mood of referendum. The public is in the mood of empowerment. People have really suffered because of COVID-19. Businesses have been destroyed. People are saying if there is any money available, let them be assisted to reconstruct their lives. They think it will be a waste of money to have a plebiscite right now because they don't think there is a problem. So the only way will be Parliament. And for Parliament to get 2/3, you have to build consensus. And we can start somewhere. We can start from Jubilee.
All right, Honorable Gachagua, of course, what you're saying is very consistent with what Senator Moses Wetangula and one Wycliffe Musalia Mudavadi was saying over the weekend as far as the BBI process is concerned. But even as you suggest that you have a Jubilee Parliamentary Group meeting, let's listen to some of those that come from the Jubilee Party on what they said after that meeting at State House.
And today's leadership that showed up in State House is a reflection of that new configuration, specifically the reaction to the bad manners, the bad behavior, the bad intentions, the evil schemes of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya in undermining his boss before he can even achieve the legacy that he has been trying to achieve. Because the next elections, if they are 2 years away, the best time, we have been in elections here for some of us. Elections are supposed to be the last 6 months of the 5-year term.
And the president has come out very clear, asking we politicians, starting with myself, that we tame our ambitions, avoid confrontational politics, and agree that there will be no people to help you form a government if in every election cycle, people will be out in the streets demonstrating and people being evacuated from one region to the other.
If you are able to have political unity in the National Assembly, in Senate, tame down our ambitions, and support the president, he has promised that all what Kenyans have been looking forward to are going to be implemented and are going to be on course.
So we need Kenya to be a long-term business environment, investment environment. So when you come to Kenya, you're not saying that after 5 years I have to stop investing so that I see how the elections go.
All right, so that's the leadership, part of which attended that meeting. But Senator Cheryl Gaye, so your colleague here, Gachagua, is suggesting for a parliamentary group meeting of the Jubilee Party. And with the sentiments you just had from those leaders, do you think it would serve any purpose, or should you now pursue consensus within the House and the parliamentary leadership?
Thank you. Unfortunately, our colleagues, it seems they are very excited with being appointed chairs and vice chairs in Parliament. And they are dancing themselves lame, and they exhibit tendencies of chronic psychopathy, which I hope they will get over it. Because the issues they are bringing in State House, they want the Parliament to build a consensus. And they want those issues, be it bills, be it proposals, policy direction, and legislative intervention from executive, to be passed by the same people like some of us. So it is shocking that they are now becoming a epitome of division within Parliament. I agree with Regardie that we should have a parliamentary group meeting with our party leader and, of course, the entire leadership to discuss the BBI proposal. But I highly doubt, because the last time we had a parliamentary group meeting, we were being called to State House to be insulted and to be dressed down. So if the only success of parliamentary group meeting is where we are having an honest conversation where the party leadership will be comfortable to listen to divergent views, especially on the proposals of BBI. Because if they want to have a conversation, we will not I will not be party myself to go to any venue that the party leader will go and dress me down or insult me or do anything. I will gladly attend a meeting where I'm given chance to express respectfully my divergent views in terms of the BBI proposal. So parliamentary group meeting is long overdue. And I think as we sit, you can see the issues that the Jubilee Party is facing are very many. And of course, it is not, I don't think it will be practicably possible for the Jubilee Party leader to hold President Uhuru Kenyatta to hold any meaningful parliamentary group meeting. Because as you can see, some of the individuals who pride themselves and have labeled themselves as the president's people are already spewing hatred of division against specific, even including the deputy party leader. So I think
Senator Cheryl, again, let me cut you short and to ask you this specific question. Of course, the BBI report is not yet out, but what is this that you're so much opposed to? You've been following the conversations around that debate. What is this that you're so much opposed to that you would actually stand to oppose it on the floor of the House when it comes?
You remember there was a BBI 1 that was being launched in Bomas. We had a sneak preview that it was coming up with an expanded executive. And I think all of us Kenyans feel the burden of being overrepresented. And therefore, we saw in BBI 1 that they were expanded, proposal expanded executive. That one, we believe, is still part of the conversation within the BBI 2. And if it comes the way we have expanded executive, where we do not have discussion on economic empowerment, on the issues of farmers, because the region I come from, you remember farmers are suffering. We are having a fight with the tea regulations. We are having a fight in the sugar leasing of state-owned factories, and you saw we obtained a court order to block it in Nandi, the area of Chemaze, Chemelil. We're having a challenge in issues of sectors of dairy sector, among issues of farming. So if, and many other challenges that we would like the BBI to discuss, especially on the aspect of economic empowerment of our people, mostly youth, mostly farmers, and even now, Kituko, you know very well that most businesses are hard hit because of COVID-19 20 pandemic. How do we cushion such businesses? But when you come to the table with the issue of expanded executive, for the few elites that you don't want them to, they want to cling to power, they want to remain relevant in power, then unfortunately, when it comes to the floor of the House, I will strongly oppose. But if the conversation is about the empowerment of our people, especially economically, we will be very gladly to have a discussion. But I think Regardie has given a good proposal that if the party leader wants us a honest consensus building at the floor of the House of Parliament, he has no option but for us to have a conversation, not to be dressed down or to be insulted.
Okay, and Honorable Kamket, of course you hear the division that this has caused, never mind that the report is not yet out, but as you are saying, it is likely to be the solution to the challenges that we face. How do you propose to move with this, knowing that too well there's a sizable number of MPs from the Jubilee Party that are opposed to this BBI conversation? How do you suggest to move forward if indeed you're going to persuade through Parliament that requires at least 2/3 of the vote?
First of all, when Honorable Regardie talks about a parliamentary Jubilee parliamentary group meeting, you wonder as a Kenyan, which Jubilee is he talking about now? Because for them, they have already moved to another Jubilee called Jubilee Asili. So that may not, in my view, that may not happen soon, because the Jubilee that they are talking about is no longer there. Now, let me put it this way. By the way, Mheshimiwa Cheryl Gaye, those of us who came in as new chairpersons are actually excited like you are when you were there before. So please do not be jealous about our excitement. You had your time. So let's enjoy this time that we have. But let me put it this way. On the matter of the Constitution, we are all anticipating debate, but there was that BBI one, as they said, and we know the issue of the expanded executive and this and other issues. But let me say that the part of the Deputy President and his team are creating a narrative about a change of constitution that talks about the expanded executive, ignoring the other aspects. For example, we are aware about increment in terms of allocation to counties. We are aware about universal health care, which is being addressed by the BBI. But they have chosen the narrative of the expanded executive because they are pursuing a political agenda. And their political agenda the BBI process does not support their political agenda. Their political agenda, the narrative that they are trying to create is this story of hustler versus dynasties. Because when the Deputy President looks at the team he has, when he looks at Rigathi Gachagua, when he looks at Cheryl Gaye, when it looks like people like Kuria and the others, or Duale, or this other group of his, or Ndindi Nyoro, who among those people can be his running mate, or can be his prime minister, or can be anything, because he has not been able to muster any serious tribal leader to his side. So he is afraid ahead of time Because elections in Kenya have never been won on class. He's trying to create the narrative of class. But election, we are students of political history. There is no election in Kenya that has been won or lost because of class issues. Elections in Kenya have always been won by tribe, groupings of tribes. And
Honorable
has been a beneficiary of that.
Honorable
when the Kalenjin and the Gema came together, they formed the supermajority, and that's why he's the deputy president.
But Honorable Kamket,
I am saying.
Let me ask you this, because
let me finish. Yes.
Let me ask you this, because you raised a point there that you are saying that elections have always been won on tribal basis. Whether that's true or not, or factual or not, is a matter of debate. But do you think that's the right way that the country needs to continue, even as you pursue a BBI process? How does it seek to resolve that?
I do not know why you, maybe you're a young man, because we live in this country, and I'm speaking the reality. So whether it is right or it is wrong, that is the reality of our politics. Power evokes that sub-regional or tribal nationalism that is in everybody, that is inherent in everybody. So whenever there is an issue of power, people go native.
Okay.
It is natural. So okay. This story that they are trying to create of class wars, I do not think it will go far, because it is a narrative that the deputy president is trying to create, because he realizes that he does not have the backing of the tribal chiefs.
All right.
in the Republic. So he's trying to bring this story of hustler for dynasty.
Honorable Kamket, we need to make
the
progress.
Mentality of poverty.
All right.
That is also a mentality of poverty.
I hear you, Honorable Kamket.
Trying to give people wheelbarrows and come on, let me finish. Why are you in a hurry? Why did you invite me to this show if you don't want to hear my view?
We need to wind up. You've been speaking for 5 minutes. I need to let in Honorable.
No, let me finish.
Okay, in 30 seconds.
Let me say that the mentality of poverty. There is a saying that you can take a man out of poverty, but you cannot take poverty out of him. That is what the deputy president has been trying to do. To try and how do you in this day and era how can you be issuing young men and women with wheelbarrows and mikokotenis? You should be telling us about, we're talking about serious economic empowerment, like it is in the Big Four agenda. But going back to try and do tokenism, it will not help, and it will not solve the problems we have as people of Kenya.
Okay, right. I hear you that you're saying that the dynasty versus hustlers narrative is wrong, but all the same, the Treble Card has been termed as the biggest problem in this country, and it's actually one of the tenets of the BBI process that President Uhuru Kenyatta and the ODM leader came up with. I just don't know how that will be resolved. And Honorable Gachagua, of course, this appears like two evils that politicians are using to win the votes of Mwananchi. How can we trust you, the politicians, whether you are pro-BBI or against it? How do you trust even as we put our future into your hands, or ambitions into your hands?
I think the people have trusted us to represent them. There's nothing you can do about it for now. We are the ones who have been given that responsibility. Whether we shall live up to their expectations is a story for another day. First and foremost, I saw the Honorable Mauka Maore talking in a very derogatory manner about the Deputy President. He was speaking in Serena in Nairobi. When he was speaking in Serena in Nairobi, the Deputy President was in Meru, where he comes from, mobbed by thousands of people who love him and who are listening to him. And I would challenge the Honorable Mauka Maore not to say that in a press conference, to go and say it in Meru. What the Honorable Kamket is telling us has confirmed our fears and our worries, that the BBI is about bringing tribal chiefs together, where you create 5 positions for the tribal chiefs to sit down and agree on how to divide Kenya. It is true. The Deputy President has no tribal chiefs in the Central Kenya region. He has a people. And I want to tell the Honorable Kamket, Kenyans have moved forward. In the 21st century, you cannot be talking of a tribal chief. And it's only that these people do not know because they just talk in Nairobi. Many people, some have moved on. They don't care about the tribe. If you came to Embu yesterday, you came to Meru, the Deputy President is not from there. But he has thousands of followers, and they know where he comes from. People do not care. People right now are interested about economic empowerment. They are interested in the ideas that you have. They don't care where you come from, because the President Kenyatta comes from Central Kenya. But Central Kenya people are suffering. They are not having any advantage because he is president. and some are going without food, and the fact that he is president does not put food on their table. That kind of thinking, Kenyans have moved on, and Kenyans want ideas, they want programs, they want activities, and they don't care where you come from. And this BBI, the way we have been told, and that is why some of us have a problem with it. And if the president calls us for a PG and allows us to speak, we shall respectively tell him what Kenyans are saying. If it is supposed to create 5 positions for the big 5, the big tribes to come together, what about the other 39 tribes in Kenya? What about them? You know, we must move away from that conversation. And I want to tell Honorable Kamke, they cannot wish away the Hustler Nation. You know, it's 95% of Kenya, and they have problems. And nobody has ever put their issues as a priority. And that is where the Deputy President is scoring. He is saying, let us not have a conversation about the big boys. Let us not have a conversation about the leaders. For a start, and for once, can we talk about the people down there? Can we look at what is their priorities? The Honorable Kamket may disparage the wheelbarrow, but the big 4, manufacturing, is one of the pillars of the big 4. Wheelbarrows are manufactured. When you ask people to manufacture them, you create jobs. Housing is one of the big 4. How do you put up houses without a wheelbarrow? And these wheelbarrows are required by people. And when they are given, they are very appreciative. You know what is happening with the big boys up there, the Kamket are the ones who are eating on the big table. They don't live in this world anymore. They don't know the importance of a wheelbarrow. Because most of these people are born with spoons in their mouth. They have never even seen a wheelbarrow in their homestead. The wheelbarrow is a must in an ordinary home. You know, to move around, to do things. It's such an important component. And what Ruto has done, he has touched, and that's why they are so bitter. They know he has touched where it matters most. The wheelbarrow is a must in an average home, in a small home. Of course, where the big boys are living, the Gideon Moyes, the Kamkets, they may not need a wheelbarrow. Maybe they have a trolley, they have a car that moves around. They will not understand what a wheelbarrow is all about.
All right, Honorable Gachagua, I hear you, and I wish we had more time for Honorable Kamket to respond, because I think some few things have been said to him. Senator Cheryl Gaye, again, I wish we had more time. It's now 27 minutes to the top of the hour, and we need to focus on the state of the COVID-19 situation in the country. We'll be talking to Governor Lee Kinyanjui. So I want to thank you so much for your time. We'll do this again. I can promise you, Honorable Kamket, same as Senator Cheryl Gaye and Honorable Gachagua. We'll do this again so that we continue dissecting this and focusing on those 2 issues. Is it about the big tribes, or is it about, as you say, those that are economically downtrodden in the society? And up next, we speak to Governor of Nakuru County, Lee Kinyanjui. Of course, he comes to talk to us about the situation that we're seeing in that county. We know the numbers of COVID-19 have been on the rise since the reopening that was announced on the 20th of September. And Governor Kinyanjui, good morning. How are you doing? And what can you tell us about what we are now seeing, the rising numbers in that county, as well as the warning from the Ministry of Health that the situation could actually get worse if you are not careful?
Thank you very much, Gitoku, and maybe I want to confirm that indeed in the last 2-3 weeks we have seen a consistent rise in the numbers of COVID positive cases, but I think more importantly is the fact that we did expect that to happen, because as a county we have also initiated specific targeted testing in areas that are not in the radar. And as a result, the numbers have gone up. But I think the more important part is, what are we doing having seen these positive cases rise?
Right, and Governor, of course, there's a story that was done by Marianne Nyambura sometimes last week that will show you how Kenyans in Nakuru County, of course, they're not limited to Nakuru County, but also we are seeing it in several other places in the country, of how lackluster they are in dealing with this, not wearing the masks. Have you done sufficient sensitization to the population, and why are we still seeing all these gaps?
Okay, thank you, Steve. I think there are many factors to this, and I want to speak to some of them. The first is that Nakuru is essentially a transit town. If you want to look at our export route, currently you have our cargo from Mombasa coming to Mai Mahiu, and that is now where the trucks going to Kampala and all these other places comes to pick that. And if you look at our numbers, the Naivasha ICD, Inland Container Depot, has been a major contributor. So the fact that you're a transit town, even if you look at the normal route to Kisumu, Eldoret by vehicle, Nakuru becomes a major transit center. And being a transit center, it means also the infection from across all these places becomes a huge possibility. So look, the fact that you're a transit town is one big thing. The second thing is that since the lifting up of protocols that have been instituted by the government, there has been a psychological belief that the disease is over or is not yet there. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest challenges we have faced is that there's a huge section of Kenyans who believe that there's no COVID. And in fact, there are some who believe that government has been managing these numbers to create a certain perception. And this has not been made any better by some of our political players, some very influential political people who continue to hold public functions, attend public rallies and so on without regard to COVID-19. And the public is quickly learning and also believing that indeed we have no COVID. So I think from where we started, I think there has been a major gap in the last probably 1 month or so, where there has been a serious disregard to the COVID-19 protocols. Mm-hmm. You may also remember that after lifting restrictions on funeral protocols, for example, before we would only allow 150, we have seen in recent days hundreds, if not thousands of people attending funerals. We have bars now open, markets, and also the public transport system. And these become active infection avenues for the citizens. So I think what we are seeing today is a consequence of responsibility bestowed upon citizens, and some of them not taking up that responsibility the way it ought to be. So I think as a county government, we have a huge task, the issue of ensuring that the public is aware and conscious, because they are aware, but in their actions, we did a quick survey yesterday, only about 25% of the people are wearing masks. Mm-hmm. And not to say wearing it appropriately, again, is another issue altogether. So I think we have a long way to go as a nation, and I think we may be going back or reversing the gains we had already made because of a few selfish actions that continue to undermine the overall national good.
Right, and Governor, I want us to take a look at some of the COVID-19 numbers that we have. I don't know whether you have those slides that will show the situation both in the country as well as in Nakuru. And at the moment, we know that the total number of infections are at 44,000. Of course, it's more than 44,000. Do you have the graphics? Right, and Governor, of course, looking at Nakuru County, specifically since the reopening on the 28th of September 2020, when the President announced that, you have had an increase of nearly 1,000 cases, because it's about 980. And people are wondering, yes, you say that it's a transit county, but also that you say that people are not observing the containment measures. But have you been able to narrow down where the infections are coming from and probably deploy more interventions into those regions?
I think I did mention that if you look at our numbers in terms of distribution, the three main areas are Naivasha, and Naivasha mainly is at the ICD center. The other one is Nakuru Town East and West, which is really what you call the CBD of Nakuru. The other sub-counties, including maybe Rongai, Subukia, and Bahati, the numbers are not that bad. So I think when you look at that, it simply tells you there are areas of highest interaction. The ICD center, like I said, all trucks converge there, all drivers and turn boys, and then they go. Those numbers in Naivasha at the ICD center may not be reflective of Nakuru numbers, because it's really Rwandese, these are people from all the other places, but the testing is done in Nakuru. Secondly, I also have mentioned that previously we were doing testing of about maybe 500 to 1,000 per day. But in the last 3 weeks as a county, we felt that there was need to enhance our testing, because our public health approach must be informed by numbers. And for that reason, we almost increased that by double. So we're doing an average 2,500 tests every single day. And that is not just on the people who have been traced as a result of getting into contact with suspects, but also areas that have had no complaint, no symptoms, no nothing. And what has also shocked us is that in silent towns, including Subukia, where we have not had any case, for every 100, we found maybe about 4 or 5 had that. And therefore, that also confirms the previous warnings by the Ministry of Health that indeed the disease may have reached the community level. So I think what we really need to focus on, not just as a country, but also even us here in Nakuru, is more aggressive testing. Because without testing, and I want to say that Nakuru at 2,500 testing, many of the other counties are not doing even 100 or 200, which also means that the numbers that you are reporting are true to the extent of the tests that have been done. And therefore, it may also portray one county in negative light, so to say, which is the real true position, because also the others are not doing the testing. So I think there's a need for us to ensure that we enhance our testing, and that testing to also inform our public health approach. I also want to confirm that we still have to do our testing in Nairobi and Kisumu. So we don't have our testing center. This is a conversation we've had for the last 5 months with the Ministry of Health. Given our exposure and population, we would expect that by now the testing facility would be here. And I must confirm that the testing is a function of the national government. On our part, in the last 3 months, we have employed over 592 new staff in all cadres in health. And this is partly to help us to boost this problem. So I think we need to probably see how we can be able to deal with this, and also working with other stakeholders to ensure that the problem is adequately sorted.
Right, we appear to be having challenges with your signal, Governor. But as we do so, I'm still waiting for the graphics to look at the state of the country, because we heard from the Cabinet Secretary yesterday indicating that the country is at the risk of more infections being reported in the country because of what Kenyans are doing. And like I said, of course, if you have to look at the positivity rate, it's been on the rise up to 13%. But I hear you, Governor, say that in Nakuru County, which has a positivity rate of 20%, meaning of all the cases that of all the samples you're testing, 20% are turning out positive. And you said that you're doing more testing than other counties. Does it mean that you have now gotten your own capacity as a county government, or you're still relying on the national government? Governor, if you can hear me, I'm asking you the question about, yes, your positivity rate is at 20% of all the samples that you test, and you say that as a county you're testing more than other counties. Is it that you have now gotten your own capacity? And if yes, how do you describe it, or you're still relying on the national government? Well, unfortunately, we appear to be having a problem there. We take a short break. When we return, we'll be giving you the slides that will show you the state of the COVID-19 situation in the country, as we also get back to speak to Governor Lee Kinyanjui of Nakuru County. We're back after the moment.